Business Sidekick.
Hello all, welcome to Business Sidekick. It's Justyna, live chat content writer speaking. As you might remember, a couple of months ago, I had an interview with Bartosz, the founder of Elevate, an SEO agency, and we spoke about the first steps every business owner or website creator should take. We spoke about basic SEO definitions, about how to find the most important keywords for your business, and how to optimize content on your website for SEO. Today, I have the pleasure of talking about more advanced SEO stuff with Brian Dean, the founder of Backlinko and SEO and link building expert. Enjoy!
Business Sidekick.
Hello, Brian. Thanks a lot for accepting my invitation.
No problem. Good to be here.
Could you please tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and what you do in professional life?
Sure. So I'm the founder of an SEO training company called backlinko.com, and we help small and medium-sized businesses get better rankings with our training products.
Mm-hmm. And in one of previous episodes of Business Sidekick, I already told about the basics of SEO. We talked about how to find good keywords for your website and how to optimize your website for SEO, but it's just the first step. So let's imagine that I already have my website. What would be the another step you would suggest to take?
Well, once you have your keywords, that's actually super important. So it's really smart, Justyna, that you had that as the first step, because a lot of people skip that and they start doing other advanced things. But keyword research is the most important part of SEO. You can't skip that part. So once you have your keywords, you actually made a lot of progress already. At this point, the key is to create something on your site that's worth linking to, because Google's most important ranking factor is the number and quality of links pointing to your website. So if you have a lot of those, you'll rank higher for all of the terms, the keywords that you just found. The tricky part is, how do you do that? How do you get people to link to you? Well, the number one strategy, the only strategy, is to create something on your site that's worth linking to, that people would want to link to. And that's why people in SEO always are talking about content and content marketing, because that's the way that you get links, and that's how you ultimately rank in Google.
Many people think that if they will post something on social media, they will have valuable backlinks. Is that true?
Yeah. No, that's not true. So there's nothing wrong with posting to social media, because people can see your content and then share it, and you can get more traffic from that. Also, perhaps, which sometimes happens, you share your content on social media, someone influential sees it, and then ultimately they link to it from their website. But the link within any social media post has no SEO value. First of all, Google knows the social media sites and knows that people post things on there that they've never read, doesn't have a lot of value. But more importantly, even from the technical standpoint of the link has a certain tag on it that makes it so Google says, we don't consider this a link for SEO purposes. That's called a no follow tag. When someone adds that to a link, it means Google, don't pay attention to this link, and all the social media sites add that to their links.
So I guess that we've just dispelled the first myth about SEO. Okay, so how are we supposed to get good backlinks?
Well, like I said, the key is to create something that people want to link to. For me, one of the best ways to do that is something called the Skyscraper Technique. And what that is instead of guessing, because it's really hard, right? Probably a lot of your listeners, you might be stressed out right now. I just said, create something worth linking to. It's really hard to know what that is. It's something I struggle with myself. It's like, what could that be? That could be a video, it could be an infographic, it could be a list post, it could be a tutorial, it could be a case study. There's 1,000 things that could be. But the easiest way to find something worth linking to is just to look at your competitors and other people that are publishing content in your space and having success with it. And then what you do is you find something that has already performed well in terms of social shares, in terms of links, in terms of ranking in Google, and then you create something even better. That way you're working from a framework of something that's already done well, and you're improving upon it as opposed to starting from scratch.
And how about getting to a major news sites like Forbes or Inc? It's very difficult to get there.
It is. There's a couple of ways. So all those big websites like Forbes and Inc and Entrepreneur, they kind of have almost two parallel websites inside the website. And both require their own strategies to get links from. So the first is the traditional news site. They report on things that are happening right now. That's where PR comes in handy. That's where, just like with SEO, you need something worth linking to get a link from these type of sites, from their news portals, you need to have something worth talking about that's newsworthy, right? That's PR 101, public relations 101. You got to have something on your site or something your company is doing where they're going to say, oh, this is interesting, we're going to report on it. Like a great example, one that most companies can't do but gives you an idea, is Red Bull had the guy that jumped out of a space station. Mm-hmm. He went through the Earth's atmosphere. So something like that, everyone reported on that. That was a huge deal. But even smaller companies can do something. A couple of years ago, an e-commerce site, they banned people that use Internet Explorer from using their website. So because Internet Explorer is not a good browser, a lot of companies were bending over backwards to try to figure out a way to make their site compatible. And actually it wasn't a ban, it was a tax. So you had to pay a surcharge on what you bought if you used Internet Explorer to compensate them for the extra development time. So their site was compatible with that browser. And that was huge for PR. They got hundreds of mentions on all these sites. And all they had to do was add a little press release about what they were doing and then actually add the functionality of a tax if you use Internet Explorer. It probably cost them like $50 to do, and it got them all these links. So that's the first way to do it, is to create something newsworthy. Very tricky. Mm-hmm. The second is to look at the articles that come out that are more like how-to. And Forbes and Entrepreneur and all these sites publish that stuff. And that's like kind of SEO, how to get more traffic, or if you're a small business owner, how to do this, or some personal finance tips on sites like Forbes. And then that's where we come back to creating something worth linking to, which can be a case study, a list post, an ultimate guide, something like that. And then getting that piece that you just published in front of the author that contributes those how-to articles to those sites.
I believe that when someone is creating their website, they have like 5 major keywords. And once they rank high for those keywords, probably they should look further, right, for another ones. And I was wondering if it's a good idea to create subpages with those keywords.
I do think it's a good idea. So there's kind of two. If you have 5 to 10 keywords and you're already in the top 3 for all of them, that's great. But you definitely don't want to stop there. And you want to create some landing pages or content. So there's the whole world of other keywords you can target that I would say most, but a lot of small business owners ignore, that can be very lucrative, which are keywords that your customers search for when they're not searching for your stuff. So for example, like I said in an intro, my company sells SEO training products, but I'm not necessarily always optimizing around keywords like SEO training and SEO courses, even though those are things obviously my customers search for. What I do instead is I look for keywords that those same people search for when they're not searching for what I sell, which in my case are things like keyword research and link building and content marketing stuff. They're searching for that in Google. And then when they find my content and they're impressed by it, they can sign up for my email newsletter. And then when they're ready to buy, I'm the first person that comes to mind. And when you do that, you can there's literally probably hundreds of keywords that you can target and create great content around and rank for. And not only will that help you find new customers with this, they'll find you, they'll sign up to your list or sign up for a free trial depending on what your business is, and then become a customer. But if that content's good enough and it generates links, those links don't just help the rankings of that page. So if you create a great piece of content that gets links, yes, that content will rank better, but it also helps your other pages rank it well as well, which include your service-based pages. So if you have a landing page that is optimized around a product, it's actually going to rank better, even though the links went to that content page because it's on your website.
Mm-hmm. And in this case, does URL also matters?
Oh, I see what you mean. So a subdomain. Mm-hmm. Yes. So if you have a blog, you definitely don't want to use a subdomain, which it would be like blog.website.com. A lot of people do that, and it's a really bad practice. Now, Google recently said that they count subdomains the same as a URL subfolder. So to them, they said blog.example.com would be the same as example.com/blog. But so many experiments and my own experiences show me that's not the case. Almost 100% of the time that someone switches from the subdomain, so blog to putting it as example.com/blog, and then have all their content on pages like that, rankings have improved. Because like you said, which is true, Google counts that subdomain almost as a separate domain, and those links don't really help you. So you're absolutely right about that. Google has been very confusing on this issue, but I'm with you that it doesn't help your SEO if you get those links to your subdomain. So you definitely don't want that. Any of your content or any of your site, if you can help it, on a subdomain.
Mm-hmm. And how about the website architecture? Because I've heard that it matters a lot as well.
It's very true. So it matters a lot in some cases, and it matters very little in others. So it depends very much on the website. Actually, the subdomain versus subfolder is an example of the website architecture. So you can see that it does make a big difference. If you look up in Google like subdomain versus subfolder and SEO, you'll see tons of case studies of people that are switched to a subfolder and their rankings have improved. So there's no doubt in my mind that's a factor, and it's part of your website architecture. So that definitely makes a difference even on smaller sites. Where website architecture really matters is e-commerce sites or any site that has thousands of pages. So I'd say once you hit the 500 page plus range on your website architecture becomes more important. That's because your page just gets more complicated. Imagine it's like a building. If you have a building that has 5 rooms in it, it's not that complicated to make sure the pipes go to the right place and electricity flows and things like that. But when you have a huge skyscraper with 550 different rooms, then it's very complicated to make sure everything works right and everything's connected the right way. It's the same thing with your website. The bigger your website is, the more likely something's going to go wrong with how things are connected from an SEO point of view. For example, you can have links pointing to the wrong place from a page that doesn't exist anymore. You can have pages that are buried in your site architecture. So for example, if someone visits your homepage and it takes like 7 clicks on different links to find a page, that's not good for SEO, because that Google spider has to do the same thing and it might have trouble finding your page. So in general, the number one rule of website architecture is to make sure that every page on your site is accessible from about 3 clicks.
My God,
if it takes more than that, it's usually bad.
Yeah. And do you have any tips on how to clean it up, or maybe any tools that could help to do that?
Unfortunately, I don't know any tools, because it's very dependent on what you use to run your site. So if you're on Shopify or Magento or WordPress, it's totally different. If you have pages that are 4 clicks away, it's not the end of the world. I actually wouldn't even do anything about it. I'm just talking about an ideal scenario. But if you have a lot of pages that are like 8 clicks away, or if you have Google's having trouble finding some of your pages, like they're not getting indexed, is definitely something you'd want to fix ASAP. And it basically takes like a huge piece of paper to diagram kind of how you want your site to look, moving the pages and the links so they work that way, and then redirecting all the old URLs to the new ones. Or you can change your navigation so it's easier it only takes 3 clicks to find these pages. You don't necessarily have to change everything. You can just change your navigation so then nothing is more than 3 clicks to find.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, and we were talking about the bad examples of SEO optimization. And a couple of years ago, people used to create plenty of pages with content that was stuffed with keywords. Obviously, it's the worst idea ever, because now it doesn't work. But I'm sure that people still try to figure out how to cheat a SEO machine. And can you give a couple of examples of really bad SEO practices we should avoid?
Yeah, the good news is about that, like you said, it's a bad idea. So there's not as many people doing it. There's not as many loopholes anymore. Like if you're a black hat SEO now, which is what is considered if you do kind of shady stuff, it's actually really hard to get results. Now, the biggest mistake I see people make, which isn't as spammy as, stuffing keywords in your content, is actually just creating a lot of content for the sake of ranking in Google. So I see a lot of sites do this. They pump out, hundreds of articles or even dozens that just aren't good. And they do that because each one of those articles is maybe optimized around a keyword, or they think that Google will reward them for publishing a lot of unique content. But that's actually something that can hurt your SEO a lot. If you're publishing content that's not good, that can hurt your SEO. Google will know that. and your rankings for your entire site can go down. So I'd say that's the number one thing I see a lot of people doing. They're like, oh, I want to do content marketing because I know that's good for SEO, and Google loves content. They want fresh content. They want the stuff. So I'm going to publish a bunch of articles, and then they actually don't get results, and it hurts their SEO. So the key is whenever you publish something, you want to make it really great. Not just good, not okay.
Can we stop
great.
a moment? Because I hear that awful word, very good. But what the hell does it mean?
It's very subjective, Justina. You know, it's like art. You know, I could look at a painting and think it's great, and you could look at it and think it's horrible, right?
Yeah.
It's very subjective. It's like, what is beauty? You know, what is love? It's hard to define things like great. What is great? Well, fortunately, it's very subjective, but there are some objective things you can do that almost universally help your content perform better. So Dr. Jonah Berger, who's a researcher at the University of Pennsylvania, did a study a couple of years ago about what made online content go viral. And he analyzed the New York Times website to see which articles did best and which articles didn't do well, and what factors they had in common for the articles that did well. And one of the things he found was that highly practical content was much more likely to be shared. And that's not nearly as subjective. So, for example, the researchers thought that controversial content would do the best because people would want to share it to say, this is right, this is wrong, whatever. And he found that actually things like recipes did best, really practical stuff, or like how-to guides on home repairs tended to do really well. So whenever you're creating content, the more practical, the more like in the weeds you can get, the better. If you're doing high-level stuff about theory and your take on things, it's probably not going to do as well. Mm-hmm. The other interesting finding was that longer content tended to perform better. And they theorized that that's because when you write something really long, it's in-depth. So you cover that topic in an in-depth way, which makes it more useful and people are more likely to share it. So, for example, if we're talking about SEO, if I wrote 400 words about SEO, it's really hard to cover that huge topic in that amount of space. But if I had, let's say, 4,000 words to work with, I still couldn't cover it, but I could get a lot closer. And that piece would be a lot more valuable than the 400-word version.
Okay, so you've mentioned that creating lots of different websites with different keywords is a bad idea. Are there any other things we should avoid?
Yeah, I'd say anything. A lot of people ask me about different link building strategies. You know, is this good still? Will this work if Google is going to penalize this? And basically and I see a lot of people getting into trouble with their links. And the good rule of thumb is just, you know, if anyone can just get the link, then it's probably not a good link. So for example, like say you found a website where you can create a blog on it, and you can link back to your website, and anyone can log in or register, log in, and do the same thing, it's probably not a good link. Or, you know, if you can drop a comment on a site and leave a link, again, anyone can do that, so it's not a good link. Contrast that with something like guest posting. We have to reach out to someone who is the editor, send them a topic, get it approved, write something great, and then they publish it on their blog and you get a link back. That's a lot harder, and that's why those links are going to be more valuable than some sort of link drop that you can do on any site.
This damn SEO is so smart, you know? All right, and are there any good practices then? What are your tips?
Well, the number one thing before you get into like the details of the on-page SEO stuff is to create something that really deserves to be number one. So like you said, you hit the nail on the head, Justina. You know, SEO is smart. Like Google is smart now. And they use a lot more information and signals than they used to figure out what deserves to be number one. And if you don't create something that's really great that deserves to rank number one, it's probably not going to be great. It's probably not going to rank because they have signals that can figure that out. So that's like before I would get into that stuff. That's the key, and it's something a lot of people overlook because it's hard work. It's really hard. Mm-hmm. Now, once you create a page, whether it's a piece of content or a landing page, the number one tip I have for optimization is the URL structure. Besides what we talked about, the subdomain, assuming you're not using that, which you shouldn't, you know, let's say you have a site like example.com/whatever. Whatever comes after that slash is actually really important for SEO. So last year I teamed up with some SEO software companies and we analyzed 1 million Google search results. And we found that shorter URLs tended to rank better. Don't really understand why that is, but basically if you have a URL like example.com/this is my article, title, plus the date, plus blah, 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 it's actually going to be bad for SEO as opposed to mysite.com / just your keyword or your keyword plus one more word. It's going to rank better.
If you were supposed to tell someone in steps what to do to have fully optimized website, would you be able to give some general tips on how to do that? Like now?
Yeah, I think so. They have to be pretty general because every site's different, but the process is more or less the same. And the first is keywords. So that's what you covered in an earlier podcast, and that's great that you started with that because that's really smart. So because once you have your keywords, everything else follows that. So the next thing is to create your content and figure out what you want it to be. So some of those keywords are going to be commercial keywords like landing pages for what you sell, which is fine. And then the others are going to be content that you're going to use to get links to your site. Then it's a matter of just creating those landing pages, making them as good as they can be. No one's really going to link to share to most service pages or product pages, which is okay. And then you have your content, and that's the whole game. That's the key to SEO. And that's where you have to create something amazing. So once you create something amazing, then the key is to build links to it and promote it. That's pretty much all there is to SEO. It's pretty much the same as it was back in the day.
All right. Thank you very much for this chat. It was a pleasure.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Business Sidekick.
That's it for today. Thanks a lot for listening. Brian is one of the best in his industry, so I hope that you've learned a lot today. For more interviews with awesome guests, check our website livechatinc.com/podcast or just subscribe to our iTunes channel. Also, if you liked this episode, leave us with reviews so I know that podcasting makes sense. All the best to you. I'm wishing you a lot of happy website visitors and tons of organic traffic.
This podcast was brought to you by Lifetime.